Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Excuse the no face today. I wasn't quite made up and ready and I've got somewhere to go later, so I didn't want to sit down and do this as a full recording and you're in voiceover mode today. So today we're going to be looking at the setup of my August budget. I think I'm actually going to change the naming conventions here. I usually say like July to August, August, September, what have you. Due to the time I get paid, which is mid-month. I've mentioned that 1,000 times, I'm pretty sure. But I think sometimes it looks a little bit confusing on the thumbnail because it looks like I'm budgeting for 2 months when I'm not. So I think from now I'm just going to call it by the starting month and we'll move forward. It'll just look like it's late every month. So I got paid a couple of days ago and I thought we'd go through the expenses I'm expecting. Got a couple of little, not exactly changes, but adaptations, I suppose, of how I'm usually do things. And we can take a closer look at that. I am actually returning to school in less than a week. I'm filming this on Wednesday and we go back to school on Sunday. So that will impact my budget slightly, but it also means I'm going to be kind of back in a routine. However, this weekend is going to be a little bit difficult. Not exactly. I don't have much plans, so as difficult as I make it, I suppose. But it relates to something I've done in my budget, so I'll explain it. My bank is merging with another bank, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, if I'm completely honest, because I had to go and find my cards the other day, and it was really difficult. And we got lost, and it was a bit of a palaver. But I've got my new cards now. The accounts are transferring over. And I'm so angry about one of the things. I'll tell you when we look at the budget. But it means that this weekend when the transfer is happening, that neither bank will be available. Our cards will not work while they do the final transferring things. So when I go and get groceries in a little bit, I'm going to get some cash out of the machine just to make sure that I have something on hand if I need it. But as I say, that will relate to something that I have in my budget and a couple of the category changes and things. So let's get into the numbers and I'll explain as I go. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. I got paid my usual $13.13. There was a possibility that my bonus was coming through this month, but it looks like I did get the dates mixed up and I won't get it till next month, so we'll discuss it then. Out of that $13.13, I sent home 1,003. So let's take a look at the fixed expenses. Usually these don't change, but I had a couple of things happen. So my home internet, I changed the package I was on. While I was under contract, they restructured their tier system. So the 37 I was paying actually put me on the third tier in terms of speed. And the speed I had originally signed up for at that cost was assigned to the second tier, which is a little bit cheaper. So I got a text message at one point saying, we're increasing your speed for X amount of months for free. And that's what was actually going on. So I didn't mind. I'd signed up to the cost of it. So I guess they just increased my speed to bring me in line with it. But because my contract was finishing this month, I actually ended up putting it down to, with tax, it will be 29. So you'll see that reflected from now on. But the reason this cost actually says 0 is because I had to finalize the payment of the last month before I got paid, just a few days before. So I ended up putting it as an other spending category in my home account because I paid for it on my home card because I didn't have the money in my local account at the time because we were right at the end of the month. So that's why it says 0. It's because it's been paid for in different areas. But I had to finalize my August payment before I made the change down. Otherwise, they were going to classify it as a downgrade during contract. And that meant I would have got a 50 real charge. So having completed my contract, I'm permitted to sign up for a new one. So it was just a case of timing and I had to take care of it a little bit early. Electricity, I will put 20 on this month. I've got about 4 left on now, so I haven't put it on yet, but I will. And my cleaner will cost 20 as usual. My phone, I've got a little bit on the account still. I have gone down, I think I told you this, I've gone down a tier in that as well because I just wasn't using as much data as I thought. And what's in the account will cover this month, so I don't need to worry about it. Down to the variable expenses. My groceries have got their usual 120. It says I've spent 33 here when I actually haven't, and this is why. I did an order from Amazon Dubai recently because we don't have enough business to support our own local Amazon or a native one. So there isn't an Amazon Oman, just the Middle East orders from the UAE. And a friend of mine who works in a different department in my school actually wanted to order a couple of cheap tablets for his kids to like take pictures on and do things on during the classes. But the school has to own them outright. They have to be kept in school for like safeguarding reasons, so no one's taking pictures of kids home or using their personal devices or anything like that. So he asked me if I were making an order anyway, could I order them for him? So because groceries is my biggest budget category, I took the money out of groceries to account for the money coming out of my account. But when we go grocery shopping today, he's going to give me the cash and I'll use it to pay for my groceries or for something else in the month. So the money still exists. I will technically have it in hand, but it'll be in cash instead of cards. So I wanted to denote it coming out of the account. Transport, I'm putting 20 in. I was going to put more in, but I've got a charge I have to take care of, which I'll talk about in a minute. So I've just skimmed down that category a little bit. School, I've actually put 10 extra in because I am going back to school pretty soon, as I told you in the intro. And usually that means that I need to buy a few things for my classroom. So I just wanted to give myself a little bit of extra wiggle room with that. The school is set up pretty well. If I want basic supplies, they'll just give them to me and I'll sign and they come out of the primary budget. But I just like to have the flexibility. Beauty and health get the usual, is it the usual 30 actually? Or did I recently put that up? It's the new usual. Beauty and health get the usual 30. And while I was ordering the tablets, I also ordered a makeup balm because the one I have is irritating my eye area at the moment. So that's the cost there. Miss Cone gets its usual 10. My spending gets 25. Clothing is only getting 10 this month because I had to account for this category, bank charges. So the thing I said earlier is really annoying me right now. I have 2 cards with my current bank. I have a debit card and a credit card. And when I got here, I had just finished paying off my credit cards and I didn't want to pay a fee for it. So I asked specifically, are there any fees associated with keeping this card open? And they said no. And the first thing it said in my paperwork was no fees for life. I was like, okay, great. They've now transferred us over to our new bank, or they're in the process of doing it this weekend. And the credit card I've been transferred over to does attract a fee. It attracts a fee of 60 Rial a year, which is about £120, 150-ish dollars, depending on where you're from. Like, it's no small amount, and I don't use the card. I opened it just in case of emergency because when I first got here, I didn't have an emergency fund set up. I didn't have my sinking fund set up. And if something happened, I just wasn't sure exactly what I would do. So it was free. I opened it. So no problem. I call the new bank and I say, hey, I'm not interested in keeping this account open. Could I please cancel the card and close the credit facility? And they said, oh, we're going to waive the fee for the first year. And I said, yes, and I appreciate that, but I don't use it and I don't want to keep it. And they said, okay, we'll close it for you, but you have to pay 25 Rial. Because if you cancel in the first year, there's a penalty. And I was like, excuse me, I'm being forcibly transferred over to this card. I didn't sign up to those terms and conditions. I didn't ask for a card that would attract fees. It's not a like-for-like product. I would like the fee waived. And he was like, no, if you open a card, you have to pay to close it. I was like, well, the point would be I didn't open the card. And the way things work in the Middle East here, like I stay polite with the guy, but the way things work in the Middle East here is oftentimes the people you speak to on the ground can't make those changes. It has to be approved by somebody else. And so the same happens with my Redo account. If you need an exception made, like when Redo, my phone provider, installed my internet, they installed it in the wrong speed. And even though it was their mistake, when I called to fix that, they said, no problem. We have to log a complaint in order for it to go to the escalated team who can approve these exceptions. The same is true in banking. So I said, okay, I would like to speak to your escalation team because I know very well there are people who can make exceptions here. And under the circumstances, I don't feel it correct that I'm getting charged for this. And to be honest, even if I get refused, I want to ask the question. I feel it's fair. And here's the real problem I have with my bank now. Like, they wouldn't even escalate it. Like, I'm a customer. I have a right to do that if I feel that something is happening at the level I'm speaking that isn't correct. And I don't blame the person serving me because they have rules as to what they can do. But I have a right to escalate to a different department should I feel it necessary. And if they can't do what I want them to do, I need them to escalate it. They point blank refused me. They were like, we will not email for this. And it was the second time I had called them, because the first time the guy said, I asked to escalate, and the guy said, well, why don't you call HSBC and get the card cancelled there? Because they'll be able, it won't transfer over. And I've already received the card from my new bank. And so I was like, oh, okay. But I've already received the card. And he said, yeah, no problem. But HSBC will not make any changes. They cannot open or close new accounts or anything while the transfer is in progress, which we've already hit the deadline for. So I was calling them back and just saying, hey, under those circumstances, I'd just like those details added to the escalation that at that point I thought I'd already done. And they were like, nope. And also the guy before lied to you and didn't send it. And they didn't use the word lied. I did. And they were like, yeah, sorry about that, but we're not doing that. So now I've had a small temper tantrum about it, not with the guy. But basically, even if this is just a me thing and I need to calm down and get over it, I am absolutely refusing to bank with them now because I'm just so annoyed by how they handled me there. Now, my school invites representatives from different banks to come to the school when the new teachers arrive, which they're arriving literally today, so that they can sign up for their new accounts. They did the same for us. And what I'm going to do now is when the banks come to the school, I'm going to sign up with a different bank, and then I'm just going to go into the one we're merging with, and I'm going to close all my accounts. And it will probably mean that they will still force me to pay this completely unfair charge. But I tell you now, if they do, it will be the last bit of business they ever do with me. So that's all I really can do, to be honest. But it was an incredibly frustrating process. And it's going to cost me 25 rial. That's £50, which is, God, I don't know, $60, $65 maybe even 70. Like, it's not a small amount of money for something I did not agree to at all. But all ranting aside, and believe me, I've been ranting about it the last few days, I've just had to skim a little off some of my categories to make room for this charge. I've also been very sure to pass that information on to all the other teachers, so I imagine quite a few people will be leaving. So there's my total at 310. And if we go over to the other side, you can see when I transferred the money, that turned out it was actually 2003, I think 97 or something, but I like rounder numbers here. The exchange rate has not been good. We're now looking at about 1 rial for every 2 British pounds. When I moved here, it was 2.3. But we've got 2004 coming in from salary. I will have 739 come in from YouTube, but it hasn't hit account yet, which will give me a total of 2,743. So to look a little bit closer, my emergency fund got its usual 200, and probably my bonus will end up going up into emergency fund because that's the one I want to focus on in the future, but we will see. And in my other spending, I hadn't planned on doing anything, but I actually did 130. Part of that was, what was it? Oh, the Wi-Fi bill I discussed. So a solid amount of that was the Wi-Fi bill I discussed. And I'm trying to remember what the other thing was. I think I ordered something off of Amazon. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it went into other spending. Down into my subscriptions, I've got my new YouTube Premium subscription, and I've got the creator that I support. I had enough left in the account that it will cover those payments this month, so I didn't need to put any extra in. So those are just equaling out to zero at the moment. My private pension got 845 because the difference in what I was spending in subscriptions before, I just popped onto there. And future got 500. Now, when we go down into sinking funds, I have chosen not to put anything in medical, gifts or Christmas or hair this month. I might end up changing that depending on what I have left, but I've got enough in those, and I literally just got a load of wigs because my friend came back and he bought them with him. So I'm not urgently in need there, and I'd rather the money went to other places. Home Tech got the 70 to bring this up to 350. I paid the 200 into my tax for future payments just to prepare. I have not paid travel yet. It will be 300. Oh, there's a possibility I might end up going home for Christmas to see my mom, but she's moving house at the minute, or she will be, and there's been a bit of a delay, so I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's nice that I have the money in place. It's going to be 300, but I haven't paid it yet because I am going to pay that out of the YouTube money that comes into my account, and then I'll have a little bit extra. I haven't decided yet if the extra is going to go towards my emergency fund because I'd like to build that as fast as possible so I can redistribute the money, or if I'm going to put it elsewhere and maybe put more of my sinking funds as I was planning before, or anything like that. The decision hasn't quite been made, but I'll let you know when it is. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for listening and for being here. I hope that all made sense to you, and I will see you for my check-in. Bye-bye.